Character is where emotional health, leadership, and discipleship all collide in one place. I love that line. I just wrote it this morning, actually. But I'm just curious, have you noticed that life is really hard at times? Of course it is. Everyone experiences hard life at various times. There are so many challenges and painful things that come at us at any point, and it's usually during these toughest times that the worst of us comes out of us. And I've been there and I've seen that many times in my life. And Scripture is very clear that just because we follow Christ doesn't mean that all of these hard things of life are just going to go away. Listen to what Paul says about some of his hardships. 2 Corinthians 11:23 says, "Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more. In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in deaths oft." And he goes on and he talks about all of the crazy stuff that he had to experience. And then in verse 28, he says that he still takes care of all of the churches. Paul is talking about all that he had to endure as a leader and as a minister of Christ. And then in verse 31, he maintains his love for Christ, even though he had to go through so much in his life. How can he respond to these amazingly difficult circumstances and still maintain such a good and healthy response? How could he struggle in life and in service to Christ so much and still maintain his love for Christ and others? What did he know that we don't? What's the solution to going through tough stuff in life and leadership and to produce phenomenal fruit at the same time? I'll give you a hint. It has a ton to do with character. Most people think that our character is just our morals, but there's a whole lot more to character. And in this series called Grow Your Character, I'm going to share some things about character that have the potential to change your life. And specifically in today's session, I'm going to introduce the topic of character, but I'm going to show you that there's a whole lot more to our character than what you may think. Hey there, I'm Ryan Franklin, and I would love for you to join me every week as we explore leadership topics that'll help you get the clarity needed to move your organization forward. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified as soon as I post a new session. Before we get started, I do want to mention that I have a great new product called the Christian Leader Blueprint. It's a solid model for leadership development. If you've been looking for something that can help you or your team members develop in leadership, look no further than the Christian Leader Blueprint. And I want to give it away to you as my gift to you. Just go to christianleadermadesimple.com and you can download it for free today. And without any further delay, let's get to our session. Just the other day, Kerry Newhoff posted a quote on Instagram, and I'm assuming it was his quote. He said, "Ultimately, your character, not your competency, determines your capacity." And he went on to say that your talent may get you in the room, but your character is what's going to keep you in the room. And for me personally, my character growth has been one of the hardest and yet one of the most important parts of my leadership journey. As Kerry put it, I've had to wrestle down my character issues and my blind spots and my leadership risk so that I can lead better and ultimately live better. And the way we interpret the challenges of life has a drastic impact on our character. We can't always control what's happening around us, but we can change the way we navigate through those circumstances. Because the more we work to improve our character, the better our reactions during those tough situations are going to be. And the person that you are on the inside is who you will eventually portray on the outside. You can fool people for a period of time, but ultimately when the stress is highest, when you're tired and you've arrived at your capacity, this is where you can't hide those internal challenges anymore. And you'll reach a point where the inside of you starts to become visible on the outside of you. And this is where the pain starts to come to the surface. It's negative fruit in our lives. We begin to detach from people. We get moody and we push people away. We become cynical, or we worry too much, or we use passive-aggressive behavior with those around us. It manifests in a lot of different ways. Maybe for you it's people-pleasing, or maybe it's egotistical behavior. However you see this negative fruit in your life, one thing you must understand is that these things are deeply rooted in our character. Now, I want to pause here, and I want to say that most everything that I know about character structures came from Scripture first, but it also came from Townsend Institute at Concordia University. And that's Dr. John Townsend's Institute for Executive Coaching. And they drilled all of this stuff in our heads, and it's such a great program. It was enjoyable for me. Many of you have heard of Cloud and Townsend. Those are the guys that wrote the books on boundaries. Well, they also wrote some phenomenal books that helped me understand character in a much greater way. And two of my favorite books are that they wrote on this subject is Hiding from Love by John Townsend and Changes That Heal by Henry Cloud. And I'll list those in the description so you can find them. They're just phenomenal books that greatly grew my understanding of this topic. But to get back to it, character is what makes the internal of a person. Dr. John Townsend defines character as having a set of abilities required to meet the demands of reality. It's a great definition. To look at it in a different way, character is your personality traits that determines how you respond to people and circumstances and environments. The Bible would actually probably define character as the heart or the soul of a person. Matthew 15:19 through 20 says, "For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man." And then Matthew 7, verse 16 through 17, "Ye shall know them by their fruits. The men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles. Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit. But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit." And then verse 20 says, "Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." So character is the deep-rooted soil in a person's life that either produces positive fruit or it's going to produce negative fruit. And I would bet that if you're listening or watching this podcast, I'm going to bet that you mostly have positive results in your life, positive fruit. You generally don't struggle with negative things arising in your leadership and personal life all of the time. That's probably not routine for you. In fact, you may be thinking about turning off this session because you don't think it applies to you. But hold on just a minute, because I can also say with confidence, there's not a person watching or listening that doesn't occasionally see unwanted negative fruit rise to the surface of their life. And I know that because I know that only Jesus is perfect. I know that every one of us have growth opportunities. We all are in process, and we'll remain in that process until the day that we die. But what if you could understand your character and this growth process enough to help expedite your growth? What if I were able to give you a few aspects of character that could help you identify specific opportunities for growth within you? Would you want to hear that? Today, I'm going to wrap up this session by giving you the big picture, and in the next few weeks, I'll break down each one of these components in a little bit more depth, one at a time. Dr. John Townsend and Dr. Henry Cloud in their books both agree that there are 4 major components of good character, and they back it up with Scripture. And I've changed the names a little bit to make them better fit my preference, but here they are. Number 1, healthy relational connection. This is the ability to trust and be vulnerable and bond to important people in your life. Number 2, healthy separation or boundaries. The ability to have your own voice, to make your own choices, and to freely express yourself. Then number 3, integration or reality. The ability to embrace the truth that there are both positive and negative realities in your life. And then number 4, adulthood or maturity or authority. It's the ability to be confident in who you are and why you exist. And so again, I'm going to break down these further in the coming weeks, but I want to share with you how these things have impacted my life. Character is so vital to our leadership. I've worked on these things for many years now, but it wasn't until I was provided this model that I had tremendous focus and clarity around the growth that was needed in my life. These are the things. These are the deficits that would create these occasional sore spots in my leadership. I couldn't figure out why. I would go days sometimes with a downturn in my emotions. I couldn't figure out why I would occasionally become so moody that my family couldn't stand to be around me. I couldn't figure out why there would be times that I would want to detach from key relationships in my life, even those relationships that were vital to my leadership. And it wasn't until I understood and learned how to level up the deficits in these 4 character structures, it wasn't until then that I started seeing significant and routine growth in my life. I began overcoming things that I didn't think were even possible to overcome in my life. And the beautiful thing about all of this is, it's deeply rooted in Scripture. Paul exampled it and wrote about it, and it's at its core, it's really just a deeper level of discipleship and maturity. And it's overcoming those deeper rooted issues that sin has brought upon us and living a whole and fruitful life as Christ intended us to live. Character is so vital to our leadership. Be on the lookout for next week's session on healthy relational connection. And thank you so much for tuning in. And if you found value from this session, I would greatly appreciate you hitting the like button or rating the podcast or writing a review. And also sharing this content on your favorite social media sites. It just helps me extend my reach. I hope you have a great day. God bless you.